Hey everyone, welcome to a little bonus episode here of Bogey Proof. You got myself, Matt, and Erik here to talk a little bit of wine with you guys. Due to the current schedule of PGA Tour, recording this here early February, they're about to take a trip, up through California, a little bit of wine country, getting near Napa Valley and whatnot, and kind of some stuff we talked about on a couple previous episodes of, the Bogey Proof retreats, and Mike mentioned Bordeaux and trying to get a little educational on the alcohol side and the non-golf side here at Bogey Proof. And I figured, between those kind of factors and then, the factor myself of, 25 years old here. And it's about that time where, post-grad life is very real. It's college really is in the distant past and full in the corporate America. And, it's just the time where wine is all of a sudden a thing that I drink. And it's something I'm trying to get more into and trying to get a better understanding of. And I think my buddy Erik here will be able to guide me through this journey that I'm starting here. And Erik, I think I'll open it up to you to kind of give your background with wine and kind of how you got a little bit ahead of the game from certainly where I'm at right now.
Yeah, well, and like you said, it for sure is a journey. I mean, there's just about more to learn about wine than there is about any subject in the world. That's why I think they call the master sommelier exam one of the hardest exams to pass in the world. It's about a 1 to 2% pass rate. Um, so obviously there's a lot to learn, a lot to explore in the wine world. And like you said, the age that kind of we're at right now, 25, 26, that kind of age group, people really start to explore wine and try to find all that there is to be offered. And I've been kind of fortunate to, like you said, get a little bit of a head start against most of our friend group with wine and kind of my background. I mean, really have learned along the way through what I do for work and working in the private club industry, obviously, am surrounded by wine a lot, just day to day at work. And through kind of my role at the club that I work at, really have been exposed to some great opportunities to learn about wine and winemaking and different regions of winemaking and what makes things different from the other. And won't get into too many details here right off the bat, but really my work is what gauged that initial kind of education of wine. And then really over the last, I'd say about year on my own is where I've dove in a little bit more of my own time into learning some more about wine. And am happy to share with you. I know when we went to New Hampshire in September, we cooked up a nice dinner and had a couple of bottles of wine, and it was fun to kind of just talk a little bit about the wine with just you, Mike, and Joe. And I'm excited to kind of talk about it a little bit more here and have some people listen in and really just kind of start this, like you said, educational piece of Bogey Proof and kind of see where it goes. So just going straight into it, like you said, you're pretty new to the wine world. Do you look back on a moment, or do you have kind of like that aha moment where you're just like, like I kind of like this. This tastes good. I don't really exactly know what I'm drinking, but this tastes good. Let's do this again sometime. Is that kind of how your wine experience started, or did someone introduce you to wine? And we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, I think, that initial moment or whatever, at least for me, when I realized like, even if I don't like, I definitely enjoyed it, but I was like, I need to figure this out, was really through work. Back pre-COVID days, we had, corporate events, right, with either our clients or internally at like national trainings and whatnot. And, everybody at dinner, it's like, you don't want to, when you're out to dinner with, senior managers, partners, CFOs of these big clients and stuff like that, you're not going to order a Bud Light, that's just like not, and you're not going to order a vodka soda either. Like you just have to like, wine is just seems to be the most appropriate drink depending on, like that's always kind of the default. Like if you have a better relationship, you can kind of do whatever you're in the mood for. But I think wine is usually the safer choice, and it's just a little bit more professional for whatever reason. I don't know really the reason for that. Just that's the vibe it gives off. And it it really just, for me, I was like, all right, like I had a few glasses of wine at one, event with the client. It was like a happy hour, pretty casual, just kind of eating some, nothing too crazy, no like big steak dinner or anything like that. But had a couple glasses of red wine. I was like, okay, like I can do this. And I was like, from there, I was like, you know what? I really want to make sure I do this right and just don't come off like, you don't want to come off like an idiot ordering like, whatever steak and get white wine, like the things you see on TV that they make fun of, right? Like the obvious ones, right? But there's obviously, like you said, there's so much more to it that I want to, at least for my own sake, and, you know, understand how, like, why I like what I like, or how to, if I'm making something for dinner, like how to make sure I get the wine that actually goes with it, not just get a bottle of wine. Like stuff, little things like that that I personally just haven't spent my own time researching. I think, like I think you have, and stuff like that, that I'm really just kind of curious to pick your brain about. And for our listeners, I mean, I'm just gonna be the guinea pig. I'm gonna ask all these questions that I'm sure a lot of our friends and other people our age are like, I don't know, I just go grab the whatever I go grab whatever cab I can find downstairs, and just that's the bottle I'm drinking. Where it's like there's no rhyme or reason, where it's like they could have just grabbed, depending on what they're eating that night or what they're in the mood for, the weather outside even, right? Like all these different things can kind of go into the kind of wine you want to drink. And I think there's just so much there to be, you know, for me to learn about. And I think, let's just start with something like this, just a little back and forth, just to kind of, get me out of the weeds here and give me a little bit of something to talk about when, I'm bringing a bottle of wine home for, a holiday dinner or something like that. It's like, oh, walking with a bottle. And then like one of my uncles who actually knows about wine and has gone on wine tours or whatever, is like, oh, thanks. And then like just puts it on the table because that makes no sense with what we're doing that night. Like, not that they would ever do that, but like I want it to be like, then to be like almost like, whoa, like that works perfect, like try and get
Mhm.
on that side of it versus the side I'm on right now. I mean, for example, this bottle of wine, like I got this case of wine, it was like a Groupon, right? It's like ridiculous, like 12 bottles for like $100. And that was like after shipping too. So I got this one bottle tonight, and it's like not even in English, right? It's for the people watching the YouTube video. And all it says is just red wine of Spain. Like,
Mm.
does that mean it's
So
like a
that's
cab? Does that mean it's a whatever? Like, like, I don't know. Like, it's just a red wine, so I'm
um,
drinking it.
so specifically with Spanish wines, that's something that's really popular. It's a red blend. So uh, Spain, you'll find a lot of red blends from Spain. You find a lot of red blends from all over the place. Tuscany, California, everyone makes a red blend. Typically on a bottle of wine, if it says red wine, it's some sort of blend of multiple different grapes. That's all you
So if they
really
don't
need.
clarify blend,
Some of them will. Some of them will on the back
yeah.
the back label. They'll clarify what grapes they
Mhm.
are. Some of them won't. I think you mentioned earlier that bottle is just 100% in Spanish, so you might not even be able to
Yeah, I
to,
don't
to,
know.
to tell what grapes are in that one. I would guess it's some sort of Tempranillo and maybe a mix of a couple other things, but um, I'm sure it's probably a pretty, just given it's a red blend from Spain, probably something that's pretty approachable, kind of just like your standard table red wine that you can pretty much drink with anything if you really wanted to.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd agree with that. I'd say, like, based on, I don't have the most experienced palate here, but it's pretty kind of middle of the road. Like, it's not hitting me one way or the other. It's just
yeah,
very, like, a
yeah,
very mediocre kind of,
and
nothing
that's
crazy.
kind of exactly why there's wines out there that kind of have that nickname, that table red wine, something that
Gotcha.
that you can put on the table no matter what you're eating, no matter who's sitting there, and it's going to be drink. So that's kind of where that comes from there. And I mean, speaking though of kind of like wine labels and kind of deciphering what is on the wine label, a lot of times you can pick up a bottle of wine, and it seems like there's a lot more information on the front of that bottle of wine than there really needs to be. The main things that you're really looking for, it would be the varietal, so the type of grape. So either Cabernet or Merlot or Chardonnay or Sangiovese, something like that, would typically be written on the front of the front label if it's not a blend of some sort.
Mhm.
Um, and then also some sort of combination of the winemaker and the region that it's coming from. Will typically always be on the label, as well as a vintage, so the year that the wine was bottled. So again, wine labels vary from bottle to bottle, from producer to producer. They're not all structured the same, but those are some staples that you can look for, specifically further down the road, once you kind of get a firm grasp of, okay, I know that I like Napa Valley Cabernets for
Mhm.
the most part. You can walk down the aisle in the grocery store, pick up a bottle of wine, says Cabernet, Napa Valley. There's probably a good chance that you'll like it. And that is obviously a very simple example of that. You can get really into that when you start looking at Burgundy and Bordeaux and stuff like that, and that's where it gets a little more complicated. And Tuscany and Italy, stuff like that, and where there's a lot of different grapes involved, and where it gets a little more complicated. But that's kind of where knowing what you like and knowing what you've had before helps when you're walking down the aisle in the grocery store and looking for something to buy for dinner or for a family gathering, something like that. And when you mentioned earlier, kind of something that fits the occasion or fits the meal that you're about to have. I think one thing that people associate a lot with wine is food and pairing wine with food and stuff like that. And it's something that I think can be a little intimidating, like you said, going to dinner or a corporate dinner and leaning towards ordering wine with your dinner, but you want to make sure that you're ordering the right glass of wine with what you're ordering. And it really is simple. And pairings with wine and food are pretty similar to pairing other sorts of food and beverages. There's kind of two different approaches that you can take to it. You can congruently pair things together. So sweet with sweet, acidic with acidic, with the food and wine typically will always go well together. A sweet food with a sweet wine will typically go well together, while an acidic food and an acidic wine will go well together. That being said, complementary pairings, so stuff that complement each other. And these are some pairings that you'll see all over the place. And pairings with two different foods together, you might see some of these pairings like sweet and salty, or sweet and spicy, fatty and acid. Stuff like that are complementary pairings that you can kind of lean towards when ordering wine with a specific meal. Again, that's beyond the point of, all right, I know that ordering this wine, that it's going to be a dry wine. Those are kind of take a couple of steps back. There's a couple of, I would say, just like basic level components of wine that you should understand that you like, whether you think you like a dry wine or a sweet wine. So that's simply, sweet wine is simply, there's residual sugar. You can taste the sugar. You can even maybe feel the sugar on your tongue. For me, I tend to really dislike sweet wine. I am very much so a dry wine drinker. So I really try to stay away from sweet wine when I can. And then kind of you look into the kind of boldness of a wine or the lightness of a wine. Two opposite ends of the spectrum, Pinot Noir and Cabernet Sauvignon. Pinot Noir is going to be a very light-bodied red wine. It's not really going to hit you in the face too hard. It's going to be easy to drink, not really a high tannin level, and not as well with that, probably not really a very high alcohol content level. Whereas Cabernet Sauvignon will be a little more bold. It'll kind of hit you in the face a little bit more. It'll be more powerful in your mouth. When I say bold, that's kind of what it means. You'll just kind of notice the structure of it a little bit more in your mouth. And along with that, which are the tannins of the wine, along with that, you'll most likely find a higher alcohol content in a Cabernet Sauvignon. And again, it's just one example of kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum, but knowing just a couple of those characteristics of wine, dry versus sweet or bold versus light, and knowing kind of just basic, white wine goes with seafood and red wine goes well with meat. Knowing some of those basic pairings will really set yourself up for success when it comes to ordering wine at dinner, or buying the right bottle of wine for dinner and something like that. Because when it comes to pairing wine with food as well, you definitely can make a mistake where one would overpower the other. Yeah. So like you were joking around earlier, you don't want to, everyone knows not to order white wine with steak. Mm-hmm. But why is that?
That's what I'm trying to get at, right? Like
exactly.
I know those key buzz ones you went through, right? Like, and whatever it may be, but it's like when it comes down to like, or say I'm like cooking, right? Like if I'm making dinner or something for, where my parents come to visit, my girlfriend's coming over, whatever it is, like I want to I want to provide a bottle of wine that makes sense. Like, not that my parents or like even my girlfriend would like, be overly, crazy about it, but if all of a sudden, like I pick a bottle that all of a sudden like, whoa, like that like hits different because it goes with the food or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like that would be like, that's like home run stuff, right? Like that'd be like, I feel like that'd be so cool to like just really understand and be able to like add to, life, right? Like add to dinners and just that extra thing that something cool to know, and it improves your overall experience, and whatever it may be. Because like, when I started this, when a couple years ago, and I had that first kind of dinner where I was like, all right, I need to kind of figure this out. I literally did it the most probably like brute way possible. I just like started like once a week, like grab a bottle of wine downstairs and see if I like it. All right, I don't really like that one. I kind of like that one. Next, like what, like, and just going that way. But like that's just strictly like just drinking it, right? Like
Right.
I'm not like doing all this food stuff with it or whatever. And I'm also drinking like, half the bottle at least, probably the whole bottle, depending on what night of the week it is when I'm opening it. So it's like, I don't know how much value that really adds to how much I really like it or not, but like I do get some of the stuff you're saying with like the light versus bold of like sometimes I take a sip of a glass of wine, I'm like it's like blowing up in my mouth. Like I feel that like it hits you right in the mouth, like you feel your cheeks and like everything, like
Yeah.
it hits that. And then other times you take a sip and it goes right down. You're like, oh, that was barely even wine, like. So I definitely kind of, now that you say these things, like I'm kind of doing some connecting the dots behind the scenes here.
Mhm.
But it all kind of goes into, I guess, what I'm trying to get at here, and kind of what you're laying out of just like the super basics, right? Like just to be in the ballpark is really all I'm looking for. I don't think I'm anywhere near starting to get my sommelier status going with that exam of 1 to 2% pass rate. I don't see that in my future anytime soon, but it is something that I at least want to, I just feel like I'm not just drinking a million beers anymore. I think it's nice to have a glass of wine. I'm not even drinking that much anymore compared to what I used to be in college and whatnot. It's like I'm usually just trying to have a nice drink with dinner on Friday or Saturday, and stuff like that. So it's just, as times change, I'm just trying to adapt here and learn on the fly. So
But
um
and like you said though, there's nothing wrong with kind of learning as you go. Like you said, you go down to the store near you and pick up a random bottle of wine once a week and figure out if you like it. Just while you're doing that, also learn a little bit about the wine. Like, okay, what is this wine? What
yeah,
I wonder why it is that I like it. Um, and I'll kind of lead into that. There's a really good app, an app that kind of has um, really helped me. And we live strongly by the no free ads policy here at Bogey Proof, but this is something that I think can break that exception. It's an app that I think everybody should have on their phone. It's the name of the app is Vivino. It's Vivino. And it is one of the coolest apps I think I've ever used in my life. You simply can open up the app in the aisle of the grocery store, take a picture of the label of wine. It'll pull up that bottle of wine. Everybody that has the app that's reviewed it will be there for you. It'll give you kind of the taste characteristics, stuff that it pairs well with, an overall review, average price of it, pretty much everything that you would ever want to know about that wine right on the spot. This
yeah,
app gives you. And then at the same time, what I've really enjoyed doing with this app is same thing as you pick up a bottle of wine at the grocery store for dinner on a weeknight, and I'll just scan the bottle of wine. That looks good. But when I get home, I'll open up what I scanned and read a little bit about that wine. Okay, these are the kind of the characteristics of the wine. Maybe read a few of the reviews, what other people have tasted in the wine, and kind of go from there. And that's kind of a great way to just on your own build a little bit of basic knowledge about certain wines and comparing certain wines to the other. Okay, so yesterday I had this Pinot Noir from Oregon, and I liked it because of this characteristic. And then tonight I'm drinking a Chianti from Italy, and while they're extremely different, I like both of them. What are the differences? And you can just, in this app, you can go back and look at the two wines and the characteristics that it lays out for you, and really just on your own without tasting the wines at the same time, you can kind of decipher what those characteristics were that you think stood out to you and what you liked most about those wines. And then from there, it helps you kind of build that foundation of what you tend to like in your wines, no matter what the varietal is or where it comes from, or red versus white and so forth.
yeah, yeah. I think that's really the next steps for me is to, one, download the app, right? Let's use the information that's out there, and two, just start like actually remembering why, like I don't really think about it. Like I'm like, oh, I like that one. Why'd you like it? I don't know. It tasted good. Like
Right.
actually doing that little bit of research, so that way, one, like like it's nice to be able to participate in those conversations when they come up. When you're talking wine, whether you're at the golf course or in the office or, wherever you are, whatever setting, where wine's a pretty popular topic. I don't know. It seems to be brought up quite a bit. So it'd be nice to just be like, yeah, I'm a big bold wine guy and like actually know what that means and be able to defend my case. We're just gonna be like, yeah, I like reds, like it's not very specific.
Yeah.
That could be literally anything. So yeah, I'm just like, I don't know. That's the point of like my life where I'm at. It's like transitioning into that kind of more adult, more mature stage, maybe we'll say. And just being able to participate in some more of those conversations. I mean, because right now, I mean, I know, like say I'm making like chicken parm or something one weekend, and make a nice pasta Italian dinner. Like I'll go get a bottle of red, but that's about as far as my decision making goes. It's like, all right, this should be red, and then I
Right.
just really grab one I like. Does that actually pair with chicken parm? I don't know, but like that's kind of where I'm at. So it's like, I don't
And
know, what
so
are like outside of like we said, like meat and red and like white and seafood, like those are kind of the high level, like you kind of get those ones the second you start drinking wine. But like, what are some like maybe some more specific ones that are your favorite pairings, or like ones that are more staples that are like just pretty basics that are I mean I don't know of it yet.
So a great easy pairing always is this kind of fun little term, and it's something that our beverage manager at the club that I work at has used, and it's what grows together goes together. So having Italian food, there's a pretty good chance that Italian wine, no matter what it is, will go just fine with that Italian food. Um, so it's kind of a pretty good standard when in doubt. If you're having Italian food, drink some Italian wine. I mean, the Italians are making it. They're not going to make food and wine that don't go well together.
Makes a lot of
Um,
sense.
so that's always a great kind of thing to have in your back pocket. Is just if it's coming from the same place, there's probably a pretty damn good chance that it goes well together. Other than that, I would say, gosh, some of my favorite pairings, some stuff that I've recently explored, um, would be, let's go with, I mean, one thing that honestly goes really well with wine is pizza.
Mm,
Um, and pizza is something that pretty much everybody eats.
everybody loves pizza.
And up until, gosh, probably just a few years ago, I was drinking beer with pizza, or drinking, gosh, I don't know, a cocktail with pizza. Um, but wine is something that goes great with pizza, and kind of just goes right back to that example that I just gave you, is Italian wine with Italian food, and something like a Tuscan red or an Abruzzo goes great with pizza. I would say for me, and this is just kind of speaking off of recent explorations, I've been on a big Italian red wine kick. So that's kind of where these Italian answers are coming from, is just kind of recent history. I'm currently
Yeah.
drinking an Italian wine. Um, so that's kind of where my brain currently is at. But other than that, I really enjoy, I'd say, kind of white fish. So cod, or gosh, mahi mahi, something like that, with a nice acidic white wine.
Mhm.
Something like a Riesling or Sauvignon Blanc, something that's got some citrus to it, that would
Mhm.
go well with that fish. It definitely depends on how the fish is prepared. If I'm going to make fish for myself, it's just going to be pan-seared with some salt, pepper, lemon juice, and the acidity of the fish goes well with the acidity of the wine. So I would say probably those are two of my favorites at the moment, just based off of stuff that I've been eating and drinking recently. Would be some acidic wine with a nice piece of white fish, and then um, Italian red wine with Italian food. And those are two areas that you definitely can never go wrong. And I would say
Mhm.
two areas that most people would like those pairings as well. Um, but to rewind a little bit, is there anything, like you said, you're not really too sure if you know what you like, why you like it? Is there anything that stands out to you that you don't like in wine? Like, you've had a wine, you're like, I don't like this, and you think you might know why.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a little bit with you. Like some of the sweet wines that like the Moscatos and stuff like that. Like not like, I don't know. I don't even know if mezcal's a sweet wine. I just guess, but like it's
It
like
is.
some of the white ones. I'm just like, I don't know. It doesn't really do it for me. I do like
Yeah.
Sauvignon Blanc for a white one. That's like if I'm gonna do white, that's usually the one I go with.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, for white wines, I'm not a huge fan. Like for reds, I would say like, and I don't even know if these are funky, but they're funky to me by name. Like the Shirazes I've found every once in a while. Like
Yeah.
every once in a while, one of those like pops in there, and that those are like, I don't know, they're a little funky for me. And then I don't know, like some I've had like some Merlots and like my dad loves Malbec, and depending on the bottle, I'm okay with the Malbec, but sometimes I'm not a fan of them.
Mhm.
I don't know. Like it's just it's I feel like it's more of it might be more regional for me of which ones I'm like liking and not liking because I don't really pay attention to that. I'm usually just going by like that front label, right, of like Malbec, Cabernet, Pinot,
Mhm.
whatever it may be. That's usually kind of where my research starts and ends. And I'm not really focusing on like, like you said, like the region or county or wherever it may be that's
Right.
coming from. And that's probably something I probably will be paying more attention to going forward. But for right now, I think like the ones I certainly don't like are like the white most of the white ones. I shouldn't say all white ones. There are some white ones I like, but Sauvignon Blanc's the one that comes to mind right now. I had one of those
Yeah.
this past weekend, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like most cabs, I'm good with. Pinots are good too. They're not like my favorite, but they're like you said. I think they're on the lighter side, right? So they don't really hit that hard. So I don't know. They're fine.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And like I guess really like high level question here. Like when you're saying like some of these Italian wines, like a Tuscan Red, like a Bruzzo, like those are like their own thing, being like they're like a blend and they're not like a Cab or a Merlot or a Malbec or whatever like the other front name labels they are, or they are, but that's like the brand that you like, or
No,
they don't
so
even have to say it because they're from like things like
I mean, you just opened up a whole is a fantastic question, which opens up kind of like a separate whole can of worms with like
sure it could be, yeah.
what is Tuscan wine. I mean, Tuscany, I don't know the exact amount, but I know that they've got a insane amount of grapes that are grown in Tuscany. Um, and Tuscans, super Tuscans, are made from a blend of those grapes. Um, but then also you can have single varietal wines from Tuscany that are Tuscan wines. So Italian wines in general definitely tend to be a little bit more confusing right off the bat
Okay.
than
All right.
some of your New World American wines, stuff like that. Same with Burgundy and Bordeaux. Um, Off the bat, kind of from the outside looking in, as someone that doesn't know a lot about wine, it's stuff that can be a little intimidating just because it's not familiar
Oh,
verbiage on
yeah.
the bottle and stuff like that. Um, so when someone says a Tuscan wine or a Bordeaux or a Burgundy, those are all just regions.
Yeah.
They're not grapes. Those are all just regions that that wine is coming from. Inside of those wines, there are many different
Types of
grapes that are
grapes or
being
whatever that can
used,
go on.
and in different fashions. There could be a 100% Sangiovese Tuscan red wine, whereas there could be a Burgundy that is a blend of multiple grapes and stuff like that. So kind of goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, where there's just so much to learn about wine, and wine is something that is so complex and something that nobody ever yes, there's master sommeliers, but do they know everything that there is to know about wine? Probably not. And that's one of the most fascinating things about it, is that you can just continuously always learn more about it. But great question. It kind of opens up that little topic that I was able to touch on, just like wines being referred to by their region versus their grape
Yeah,
variety.
okay, so that's the thing that happens then, because like, sometimes, I go downstairs and they actually have I don't know if it's a good wine collection or they just have a lot of wines, but they have like rows and rows of wines at the liquor store I have downstairs. And really only like one cooler for beer. Like they're named like they are like the wine stop. They're like a wine store before a liquor store. Um, so it's like I always, I'll be walking up and down and they kind of categorize it, right? Like they put the cabs together, whatever. But then I always get to one part where it's just like it's all just like it just looks like brand names. I'm like, I don't know what that even is. Like I know I can tell it's red by the bottle, but like I don't even know what kind of wine that is. But I guess, new thing I didn't know about. Like sometimes they just put the region on there and not the actual, type, I guess, whatever you want to call it, right? So it's like all
Yeah.
those little things. See, like now I got a lot of more information right now. I gotta start paying attention to the grapes, not just like, the name of it or whatever, or the region. Like these are things that I would not have known. I mean,
Yeah, well, and at the same time, though, like your Bordeaux's and your Burgundies and your Super Tuscans, for the most part, you find a bottle that, flip it over on the back label, it'll tell you what grapes and the
yeah,
percentages of those grapes that are in the bottle.
right.
So if you know that you don't like Merlot and
Mhm.
you pick up a Super Tuscan that is predominantly Merlot, you probably could tell that you
Yep.
don't like that bottle.
Yeah, I gotta start paying attention to the grapes when
Yeah.
I find
So
ones I really like or don't like. Kind of like you said, whatever, a couple topics ago, or whatever. Like realize why you like that wine. Like pick a characteristic or whatever it may be, and be like, all right, I like this one because it's blank, and I don't like that one because it's blank, and then, or I like both of these even though they're different because of X and Y, and like starting to actually pay attention to that stuff, I think is in order for me to actually get this stuff is what I got to do, right? Like, and I think taking it one step further than just being like just that front label on the bottle is really all I've ever looked at in the past. I think that's kind of like where my true next steps lie, is just being like, okay, I like this one. It's a cab, but like where's the cab from? Is it, like stuff like that. Like is it like 100, purely cab, or is you got a bunch of different stuff going on in there where it's like got, whatever else going on. So
mhm.
these are all things that I don't know. I'm
And
very, very early in my wine journey. It's been about a year, but like a year of not really practicing much of it besides just like mixing in a bottle with dinner here and there. So
and
we're
one
early
thing
in the
too,
journey, but we actually got some stepping stones now to move
yeah.
forward. Where in the past I was pretty rogue out here, just grabbing random bottles of wine downstairs, finding something in like a X amount price range, and kind of going from there. But
Yeah, and I would say like one of the biggest things with wine is like don't be afraid to ask questions.
yeah,
You're in the store, maybe not necessarily in kind of like your generic grocery store. The staff member walking down the
yeah,
aisle there might not know too
yeah,
much
the high
about wine,
school
but
kid that's working minimum
if
wage.
you're yeah if you're in a wine shop or a liquor store that seems to have a good wine inventory, or then even more so at a restaurant, and you're going to order a bottle of wine or buy a bottle of wine, ask questions. I mean,
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, your waiter or your server is going to know more about it than you.
Yeah, and they probably
And
want to be asked because their boss made them memorize all this random fact, right?
yeah,
Oh,
and
thank God somebody asked me something today other than
right.
like, where's
And
the
it's
butter?
there at the same time too. If you come across someone, say you're at a nice restaurant, and going back to this kind of like corporate dinner environment, you're at a nice restaurant, people around the table are ordering glasses of wine. Don't be afraid to ask a question of the waiter.
Yeah,
It's that waiter's opportunity to impress you and impress the table
yeah,
as
let,
well.
let them
So
show off a little bit. Like,
yeah.
like when you're a kid, you're like, I know, but you tell me what you think it is, right? Like, I know what you think it is.
So yeah, definitely never be, and with anything in life, I mean, never be
Oh yeah,
afraid
oh,
to
yeah.
ask questions.
There's a bigger message there for sure.
Yeah,
But
yeah. But it really just kind of like to summarize some of the stuff that we talked about. It really starts with just a little bit of kind of like R&D, just figuring out what you think it is that you like and going from there. And also figuring out what you don't like. Probably more importantly, figuring out what you don't like. Like for me, I
rule
know
those out. Yeah.
number apart from just like the generic category of sweet wines,
Hmm.
I know for me that I don't like Chardonnay typically.
Hmm.
I don't typically Chardonnays are oaky, and I don't like the flavor of oak. So for me, I 9 times out of 10, I don't like Chardonnay. There's unoaked Chardonnays out there that I will definitely drink. Um, but that's just kind of an example of something that I know that I don't like. And it's a having that in your back pocket, and you're sitting around the dinner table and someone says, "Hey, let's get a bottle of Chardonnay for the table." I'll speak up and say, I don't really like Chardonnay. And that way you're not kind of stuck into drinking something that you
Drinking
don't
wine you really don't
necessarily like. Um, in having those one or two the other way that you can lean towards, like, I don't like Chardonnay, but if you guys are looking for a bottle of white wine, I personally like Sauvignon Blanc, or I like Riesling or Pinot Grigio.
Yeah.
Just being able to kind of touch like upon one or two both ways, one or two that you don't like and one or two that you like, can go miles and miles, and you never need to know anything else about wine. You can live the rest of your life and successfully be able to navigate through those wine scenarios just with a couple of wines that you know that you don't like or like.
Yeah. I think that's what I gotta do. I gotta start ruling some out and then
Yeah,
figuring out more than just being like, I don't like that literal bottle and that label in the store. All right,
exactly.
what goes on in that thing that I don't like? So to make sure I don't buy another bottle that has a hint of it and then ruins that bottle for me too. So I
Right.
think that's a big next step for me is just looking into why. The why, I guess, is a big thing here. Like the why I don't like stuff or why I like things, and make a little note of it, mental note, whatever it may be, mental reps,
Yeah.
and then kind of go forward with that. But I guess two way more random, kind of around the horn style questions here. Like, what's the story with the legs of the wine that everybody's always talking about? Like, I know what they are, like on the glass, but what is the like literal value, or like what do they actually represent? Like I know what legs look like on a glass of wine, but like what the hell, what does it matter? Like why does that matter? Why does everybody talk about that all the time?
That's that's a great question.
I'm
So
being
you
the guinea
obviously
pig.
know, like, for again the YouTube viewers out there, I'm swirling a glass of wine here. You can twirl at it, look at it, and there's really nothing running down the edge of my glass. When you get stuff running down the edge of your glass, that kind of can usually tell you that the alcohol content in that wine is a little higher. Maybe the tannins are a little higher. That's really what it is.
So the people that are always like spinning, like, look at the legs, that's how you know it's good. It's just because it's got more booze in it.
Yeah,
Like,
it definitely does not have any reflection on if the wine is good or if the wine is bad. Um, Also, too, if the legs are kind of falling down the side of the glass a little slower, that typically means that there's some more sugar in that wine. It's probably going to be a little sweeter of a wine versus the legs that kind of really rush down the side, probably a drier wine, something that's not quite as sweet.
love that. Love that.
So there is meaning to the terminology, but it definitely does not tell you if a wine is good or if a wine is bad.
Yeah, people always be like, yeah, it's a high quality stuff. See the legs on that thing? It's like, all right, cool. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, that definitely is not the case. Definitely, it does show you a few characteristics. And just speaking of stuff like that too, I mean, smelling a wine can tell you a lot about it.
Ooh, that's a great segue because I was like, that is the most uncomfortable thing for me at a restaurant when, like, I'll order the bottle of wine for, even we went for work when I went, like, back pre-COVID, obviously. We went for, like, it was like a post-busy season dinner. Partners take us out, and, like, me and a few other seniors were like, all right, we'll split a bottle of wine rather than each of us get a glass, kind of whatever. And like, I'm literally the one that just made the order. So they bring it up to me to like smell it and do the whole thing. And like, is this good? I'm like, yeah, fine. I don't know. Like, like it's just so like, I'd almost rather just put it on the table and like, I'm not going to say it's bad. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that stuff, I don't, again, I don't know what goes on there. What are you actually smelling for? What are you looking for? Like, how does a, like, what is the waiter expecting you to say there other than, yeah,
So
it smells great, thanks?
again, like 9 times out of 10, more than that, 99 times out of 100, that bottle of wine that is being brought to your table is going to be completely fine.
Yeah,
Either, and by when I say completely fine, I mean the bottle of wine itself has not gone bad.
right. Yeah,
It
like,
is something that happens though with wine, and that pretty much is what the whole tasting process of wine service is built upon, is
mhm,
ensuring that that bottle of wine is not compromised.
yeah,
Um, and that's something that you'll really, if you were to order a bottle of wine at a restaurant, they bring it over to your table, and for some reason when the waiter opens that bottle of wine, he doesn't notice and he does pour it in your glass and you go to taste it, you'll be able to smell it. And
yeah,
when I say that, it will really be kind of like a pungent, like moldy, like just
ooh,
gross smell. You'll know that something is off, whether it's your first glass of wine in your life or your millionth. It's really just a very kind of like, it'll hit you in the face, smell pretty gross, and you'll just know this, like, something that I'm about to drink should not smell like
Fair. Okay. All right.
that.
That makes a lot of sense. They smell that themselves. Though. I guess knowing that now, I'm a little more comfortable in that situation. But like
Yeah,
when they smell it, like I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to be like. I don't know.
yeah,
Smells fine to me. All right, let's move on. Like I always feel like there's something more I should be saying there. But I was like, all right. But
no,
knowing that
no.
that's all it's really checking, I'm very comfortable with
For
that
the
sentence
most for
now.
the most part, it's just really checking to make sure that the bottle of wine isn't compromised. I mean, you'll have people out there that try to impress their group, or people out there that always try to complain about something and
Yeah,
a
yeah,
bottle of wine,
yeah. They
and
get the
decide that isn't good enough for them, or
yeah they get the expensive
it's
one
not
and just
what
because
they
it doesn't
expected.
smell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I got
there's always going to be people out there that
you.
do
Yeah.
that, and kind of just whatever with them. You're really, when you're the one that's trying the wine at the table, you're just trying it to make sure that's not going to make anybody sick.
Fair enough. I'm more comfortable. I'll take on that
Um,
responsibility, and I'm okay with that. I always thought there was more to it, like they make such a the way they present it and all that stuff. I get that's like,
yeah.
you're at a fancy restaurant, so it's just part of the whole aura, but like the way they
I mean, the
present it, I'm like,
presentation, the presentation of it, of the bottle of wine, and pouring it and stuff, is obviously more than
oh
just
yeah,
if the bottle of wine is good.
right.
It kind of
But
goes
it's
along.
like intimidating when like they do all that and then like, all right, smell. I'm like, all right, I don't know, good. Like I feel like I should have a better answer than that, But
Yeah. No,
but
definitely not. They're really not looking for more than just yes or no. It's good. Just pour it
yeah.
out for the table.
Yeah, that's all right. I just want to make sure, like, again, these are like it's like the unwritten rules of wine, it's like
Right.
baseball. It's like I don't know, like
Yeah.
until
I
you
mean,
are involved in one way or another, whether it's your own research or for you through work to start it and then kind of ignite this, passion or whatever it may be, and where you're now doing your own research, like until you do that stuff, like it's like a very unwritten rulesy kind of thing where it's like I don't know anything, or maybe it's just intimidating, and I'm just being a pansy by my own right and just like not being afraid to like ask these questions and stuff like we said, right? But it is definitely like something like that. I've always been like freaked out about that, but like literally they're just making sure it's not spoiled so you don't get sick trying to
pretty
drink
much.
it,
Yeah.
like so it's good to I guess bring that stuff like full circle. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think what else I had for kind of questions here. I'm sure
I
I'll
mean,
think
is there anything, so apart from some of the basic ones that we talked about before, do you have a go-to kind of pairing that you found yourself repeating? Whether it's a specific bottle of wine with a steak, or a specific bottle of wine with a pasta dish that you've been making, or something like that. Is there a specific pairing that comes to your mind, that it's something that you've kind of found that you like?
yeah, I think for me the biggest one is always like steak and red wine. I usually do cabs when I do
Yeah,
steak.
that's perfect.
I haven't had steak in a while because my apartment, the grill's, under 20 inches of snow right now. But but when I do have steaks, I almost always do a cab. Um, and then for pasta stuff, it's a lot more general red. Like I just usually keep it red, and I'm a little more lenient with that. But with steaks, I try to stick to cabs. And then yeah, I mean, those are really the only time I really make sure I put a wine with my meal.
Yeah.
Obviously, the more I look into it and get a better understanding and stuff like that, I'll pair it a lot more with whatever else I'm eating, like you said, like white fish and stuff like that. I guess one that one that I don't know what to pair with. I would assume it's white, but like, what do you put with salmon? Like, if we're doing like grilled salmon and like some kind of like rice, like a kind of basic salmon
Yeah.
meal. Maybe you got some broccoli or asparagus, something on the side with that. Like,
Yeah.
what is your take on what you like to put with that, or like what is the profile that would make sense with that?
So honestly, one of the most common wine pairings with salmon is going to be Chardonnay.
Okay,
Um,
I'm a big
Chardonnay,
salmon guy, so I gotta have some knowledge here when I start
yeah.
looking up
So
some salmon.
Chardonnay goes really well with salmon. It definitely, though, depends on how the salmon is prepared. Salmon is one of those fishes that you can prepare it so
There's a
many
lot of
different
different
ways.
ways. Yeah.
You can grill it. You can pan sear it with some citrus. You can throw it in the oven. You can do it Thai style. So really, how it's prepared is a big factor in the wine that'll go well with it. but Chardonnay goes really well with salmon. And then some of the same white wines that I mentioned earlier
Yeah.
that are a little drier for people that like a little drier wine, like a Sauvignon Blanc or Riesling. I mean, Riesling pretty much goes well with anything in the world. Um, so that's always kind of like a when in doubt white wine for me. If I'm going to the store and I know I need to get a white wine and not 100% sold on something, I'll usually pick up a bottle of Riesling. It's something that's safe and goes well with just about everything.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
And it's for me one of my favorite white wines as well. I mean, it's kind of falls into that dry acidic category. So as far as what I like in wine, it really fits that bill. So salmon, really, yeah, definitely you can lean on those white wines, but also a light-bodied red wine is fine with a piece of grilled salmon as well. Like a glass of Pinot Noir goes great with salmon. It's an extremely light-bodied red wine. It's not going to overpower the salmon. That's something that I kind of touched upon before. Is the most important thing is that one doesn't overpower the other. The food doesn't overpower the wine, and the wine doesn't overpower the food. If you were to drink a glass of Pinot Grigio with a T-bone steak, the steak is going to overpower the shit out of that wine, and you're not even going to be able to taste the wine.
Gotcha.
And then vice versa, if you drink a red Zinfandel with, a light, like citrusy pasta dish, the wine is going to overpower the food, and you're not going to be able to taste the food. And in those scenarios, you can get kind of like if you poorly pair a wine with a food, you can kind of get a wrong idea in your head of if you like something or not. Like
right, you're either going to be like, I hate that wine, but it's because you put it with the wrong food, where
exactly,
the food
and vice
overpowered
versa.
it or didn't even partake. Like, yeah, see these are the little tidbits that we're looking for here. These are the stepping stones that are going to guide me on this journey. Hopefully, we might have to have like a touch base in, like, 3 months, whatever it may be, and be like, all right, like, and you got to like very lightly quiz me and be like, all right, I'm making X food tonight. Just tell me the one I can't eat with this. Like, don't try and pair me, but tell me the one I can't.
Yeah, and we'll save this agenda that we kind of briefly started with. I know we obviously touched on some other things, but we'll save this agenda and touch back on a couple of things. See if there's anything that new that you found that you like now. Maybe a specific characteristic of wine that you like. Whether it's I know I like dry wine, or I like bold wines, something like that. So yeah, definitely a great idea to circle back on it in a couple of months or so. And I guess just to wrap us up, I mean, obviously this is the topic of this whole conversation has been wine, and bogey proof. Everything that we do is kind of circled around golf and focused on golf. But one of the biggest things that stands out to me is the relationship between wine and golf, and how similar that they are to each other. From the outside looking in, they both kind of give off this like white collar, stuck up image that is exclusive, or kind of not inviting to people that aren't already involved. And that just really truly is not the case with both of them. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is about golf or what it is about wine that you enjoy. All that matters is that you enjoy it. And it can be any fashion of either. It can be going to your local municipal golf course and just putting around on the putting green for 30 minutes a week. If that's what you enjoy about the game of golf, then that is fantastic. And the same thing with wine. If your favorite bottle of wine in the world is a $3 bottle of wine from Trader Joe's, then I'm very jealous of you, because you're spending a lot less money on wine than I am.
Yeah, exactly. But you're not judging, right? Like,
All that matters is that you enjoy it, and that's what both of them are there for. Wine is in this world for you to enjoy. It doesn't matter what it is about it that people enjoy. It just matters that you enjoy it, and that's the same thing with golf. And they're both very approachable things, and sometimes they kind of give off this image that they're not as approachable as they truly are. So I think in that aspect, they relate to each other really well, and then they also go with each other really well. I love a good glass of wine after a long day on the golf course. So
absolutely.
the relationship between wine and golf is definitely apparent. And I don't think people. Same thing with golf. I know this year golf saw a huge growth in the game, but I don't think people should be intimidated or afraid to explore wine. Equally to, I don't think they should be intimidated or afraid to explore the game of golf. And they go hand in hand with each other. And yeah, that's really kind of what I have to summarize things. I mean, I'm excited to follow your journey, as I know many people will be. I'm excited for that first text message that I'm gonna get in our Bogey Proof group message, can be like, Erik, like I bought this bottle of wine. I'm having this for dinner tonight. Like I'll let you know how it is. Like
Yeah,
I
I'm gonna be
know
like,
that's gonna
"Eric."
happen. And I hope that other people that maybe listen to this have kind of the same reaction. Like just simply just starting out, like learning about what it is that you like and going from there. And yeah, I'm excited to follow the journey.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for the guidance here and some of the tips and laying out some of the basics for me and whatnot. I'm sure I had some pretty ridiculous questions from your standards and your point of view, but I'm hoping some of our listeners out there, in my shoes with me, and I'm asking the hard questions for them. So, cheers, man, and we'll talk again in a few months and see how my journey's going.
Cheers.